Right now, outside almost every office building in the world, you will find them. People standing in the cold or the rain, huddling together to inhale burning smoke from a tiny paper cylinder or a glowing plastic device. They will spend thousands of dollars a year on this habit. They know it destroys their lungs. They know it accelerates aging. They know it might eventually kill them. Yet they feel a deep, uncontrollable urge to do it anyway. If you look at this through a modern lens, it seems completely irrational. Why would a highly intelligent species voluntarily inhale toxic smoke? Modern society tells you it's just a bad habit, a failure of willpower. But what if you aren't just fighting a bad habit? What if you are fighting a primal, ancient instinct that has been hijacked by an $800 billion corporate machine? To understand why humans smoke, we have to rewind the clock. Long before convenience stores, neon signs, and vape shops. We need to go back hundreds of thousands of years. For almost all of human history, smoke was not a poison. Smoke meant survival. When our ancient ancestors finally mastered fire, it changed the trajectory of our species forever. Fire gave us warmth. It allowed us to cook meat, which gave our brains the massive amount of calories they needed to grow. But fire also produced a byproduct, smoke. At first, breathing in smoke around a campfire was just an annoyance. But soon, ancient humans noticed something incredible. When they hung raw meat above the fire, the smoke preserved it. It stopped the meat from rotting. It allowed them to store food for the harsh winters. But even more importantly, smoke kept the monsters away. In the ancient world, the deadliest predators weren't saber-toothed tigers or giant bears. The deadliest predators were mosquitoes and insects carrying malaria and other lethal diseases. Ancient humans quickly realized that insects hate smoke. Standing near a smoky fire was literally a shield against death. Our ancestors' brains began to associate the smell of burning wood and leaves with safety, warmth, and a full stomach. Breathing in a little bit of smoke meant you were home. But then, humanity took it a step further. As ancient tribes experimented with throwing different plants and herbs into the fire, they noticed that different leaves produced different effects. Some smoke smelled sweet, some smoke made them feel sleepy, and some smoke altered their state of mind. Around 2,500 years ago, a Greek historian named Herodotus traveled through Central Asia and encountered a group of fierce nomadic warriors known as the Scythians. Herodotus watched in amazement as these warriors set up small tents, heated heavy stones until they were red hot, and threw hemp seeds directly onto the stones. The tent would fill with thick, fragrant smoke, and the warriors would breathe it in together. Herodotus wrote that the Scythians howled with joy inside these ancient smoke tents. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were actively using smoke to change their brain chemistry. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away across the ocean in the Americas, indigenous tribes were cultivating a very specific, powerful plant. It was a plant that produced a natural chemical designed to paralyze insects that tried to eat its leaves. That chemical was nicotine, and the plant was tobacco. But the way ancient Native Americans used tobacco was fundamentally different from how we use it today. For them, tobacco was profoundly sacred. It was not a casual daily habit. The wild tobacco they grew, known as Nicotiana rustica, was incredibly harsh and contained up to 9 times more nicotine than modern commercial tobacco. You couldn't chain smoke it. It was too strong. It was used sparingly in deeply important rituals. It was smoked to seal peace treaties, to pray to the spirits, and to prepare warriors for battle. The smoke was seen as a physical bridge between the human world and the divine. The shaman would inhale the smoke, enter a trance, and seek guidance. It was a tool of profound respect. And then, in 1492, Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas. The indigenous people offered him dried tobacco leaves as a gift of immense spiritual value. Columbus didn't understand the ritual, but his sailors quickly figured out the effects of the plant. They brought tobacco back to Europe, and this is where the ancient sacred relationship between humans and smoke was completely destroyed. Europeans didn't care about the spiritual bridge to the gods. They cared about money. They quickly realized that this plant made people feel good, and more importantly, it made people want to come back and buy more. Within a few decades, tobacco transitioned from a sacred indigenous ritual into a global capitalist cash crop. European empires cleared millions of acres of land and built massive plantations. But smoking a pipe or a cigar was still somewhat cumbersome. It took time. It was a leisure activity. For a long time, the barrier to entry kept tobacco consumption somewhat limited. But the Industrial Revolution changed everything. In 1880, an American inventor named James Bonsack patented a machine that would seal the fate of millions. He invented the first automated cigarette rolling machine. Before Bonsack, a skilled worker could hand-roll about 200 cigarettes a day. Bonsack's machine could produce 120,000 cigarettes a day. Suddenly, cigarettes were cheap, abundant, and perfectly uniform. They were mass-produced, but the corporations faced a biological hurdle. Tobacco smoke is naturally harsh and alkaline. It burns the throat. If you try to inhale deeply from a traditional pipe or a raw cigar, your lungs will violently reject it. It makes you cough. Your ancient biological machine knows it shouldn't inhale thick, harsh smoke deeply into the lungs. So, the corporations had to hack the human body. They had to make the poison go down smoothly. Throughout the 20th century, the tobacco industry employed brilliant chemists to redesign the cigarette. They weren't just selling dried leaves anymore. They were engineering a highly optimized drug delivery device. They added sugars and licorice to the tobacco, which produce sweet-tasting chemicals when burned, masking the harshness. They added cocoa to expand the airways in the lungs, allowing the smoke to travel deeper. But their greatest and most sinister innovation was the manipulation of nicotine itself. In the 1960s, scientists at massive tobacco corporations discovered something called freebasing. By adding ammonia to the tobacco, the same chemical used in toilet cleaners, they completely changed the chemical structure of the smoke. The ammonia turned the nicotine into a gas that could be absorbed by the human brain almost instantly. When you inhale a modern commercial cigarette, that chemically altered nicotine hits your brain's reward center in less than 10 seconds. Faster than heroin injected into a vein. They took a plant that ancient humans used twice a year for spiritual visions, removed all the cultural respect, stripped away the harshness that naturally prevented deep inhalation, and supercharged the addictive chemicals. They created a product designed to be consumed 20 times a day, every single day for the rest of your life. And they marketed it as freedom. They paid Hollywood actors to smoke on screen. They sponsored sports cars. They told women that smoking was a sign of independence. They told men it was a sign of rugged masculinity. They weaponized the ancient human association with fire and smoke and turned it into the ultimate corporate trap. Today, the illusion has just changed its shape. As traditional cigarette sales slowly decline in the West due to health regulations, the industry hasn't given up. They just evolved. They created sleek, colorful plastic devices that look like USB flash drives. They added flavors like mango, cotton candy, and blue raspberry. They replaced the harsh smoke with a smooth, invisible vapor, but the core mechanism remains exactly the same. They are delivering highly concentrated, chemically synthesized nicotine directly to the dopamine receptors of a new generation. They are still hacking the ancient brain. You are not a weak person for falling into the trap. Your brain is reacting exactly the way it was engineered to react by some of the most highly paid chemists and marketers in human history. They built a maze, placed cheese at the center, and charged you for the privilege of running inside it. But realizing that you are in a maze is the first step to escaping it. When you understand the history, when you see the strings pulling your behavior, the illusion loses its power. You don't need a chemical vapor to relieve your stress. The stress you feel is literally caused by the addiction itself, and the drug only relieves the withdrawal it created. It is a thief that steals your peace of mind and then sells a fraction of it back to you for $10 a pack. We are ancient humans. We are drawn to the warmth of the fire. We are drawn to the safety of the tribe. But you don't need to inhale a weaponized corporate product to feel safe. You don't need to fund an industry that sees your lungs as nothing more than a recurring revenue stream. The next time you see a glowing vape or a lit cigarette, don't see it as a habit. See it for what it truly is. The ghost of an ancient, sacred ritual, trapped inside a plastic shell, designed to empty your pockets and shorten your life. You have the power to break the cycle, extinguish the fire, and take your breath back.